read your speech that you delivered at the United Nations, and I followed a lot of the debate over the last several days. And I am aware of Iran's connections, of course, to some of the actors in this story. What, if anything, would cause Iran to support a widening of the war?
We don't really want this conflict to spread out. We are advising everybody and encouraging them to move towards the stopping of the war crimes as soon as possible. But the situation remains to be complicated. It is difficult for our region to tolerate the fact that 7,000 people, civilians, have been killed as a result of the bombardments and the attacks of the Israeli regime. Because of the continuation of the crimes of the Israeli regime, the whole region has been turned into a powder keg.
Are you urging your allies to show restraint?
They decide for themselves. Anything can happen, I mean. But we do encourage the United States to abandon its absolute, total support of the Israeli regime. According to the information that we have inside the region, both the security and the political systems of Israel have totally collapsed. The Israeli citizens have no trust whatsoever in Netanyahu and his security and political system. Right now, the only thing functional in Israel is their war machine, and that is also being run and controlled and managed by the United States. If I were to be fair, I would say that Netanyahu also has his own role to play. If the attacks and if the war stops, he will fall in less than 2 days.
If I may, on October 16th, you said there would be a preemptive attack by members of the resistance front, a term that is used to refer to groups such as Hamas and Hezbollah. There has since been firing on Israel's northern border and missiles fired elsewhere in the region. Is that the preemptive attack to which you referred?
2 weeks ago, I visited the region, and obviously I met with the leaders of the resistance in Lebanon and also the Palestinian groups. What I said was my impression, or what I gathered from what I heard from them, and the plans that they have. They have their finger on the trigger. Much more powerful and deeper than you have already witnessed. Therefore, I believe that if the situation continues and if women and children and the civilians are still killed in Gaza and in the West Bank, anything would be possible. And of course, they do understand this very well, that if something changes in Gaza, then tomorrow they will go for them. Therefore, they have their own calculations for their own security, and as I said, they decide for themselves. I hope that before it's too late, and due to international efforts and political endeavors and initiatives, the attacks against the civilians will be immediately stopped, and we will have the coming of humanitarian aid into Gaza.
On October 7, as you know, Hamas attacked into Israel and killed a large number of civilians. Hamas spokesmen, in talking to the media about this, have said they led the attack and they decided, but have added that Iran provided help and support. What help and support did Iran provide for the October 7th attack?
We consider Hamas a Palestinian liberation movement. They are fighting the occupiers. And I said the very same thing in my speech, that they are acting according to the international laws. Iran has never approved the killing of the civilians. But we do have our political support for the liberation movements so that their occupied territories will be freed. Therefore, our support is only political. Today, they have enough missiles, rockets, and drones, and they can easily get them from anywhere.
You deny providing training, coordination, money, or weapons?
I am talking about the existing situation, the status quo. Now, currently, they have whatever it takes to produce their own weapons, and they have their own training, and that is why they decided themselves to go ahead with this operation.
My colleagues and I have seen video released by the Israeli Defense Forces showing the Hamas attack, some of it taken by the fighters themselves. It shows Hamas fighters moving into civilian areas, firing into civilian homes, firing into civilian cars. Some of the video shows the bodies of dead, unarmed people. Some of the video even shows the actual murder of civilians who are not armed. You said that you do not favor civilian casualties, but you made no mention of this attack in your speech. Why not?
Israel in the last 3 weeks has murdered, has killed 7,000 people, including women and children and civilians, by launching its bombardments. I have heard from the Israeli media that about 1,400 people were killed in the Al-Aqsa storm operation. Now, about 7,000 people have been killed in Gaza. So, is this proportionate? As I said, we are opposed to the killing of any kind of civilian. Have you asked this question? Have you put it to the Israeli officials that they have killed 7,000 people in less than 3 weeks? What we are now witnessing in Palestine, in Gaza, is a genocide, is a mass killing.
We have, in fact, asked Israeli officials about civilian casualties in Gaza, and many people around the world have asked Israeli officials about civilian casualties in Gaza. I am asking also about civilian casualties caused by Iran's ally, Hamas. Has Iran said a word to Hamas about this tactic?
He said that they stand ready to combat the army of Israel for a long period of time militarily. He said that they can come to an agreement with Israel to keep the civilians away from this conflict. It will be like this. We hit their military, they hit our military. It will be just between the military people. Leave the civilians out of it, and we are ready to do it for a long time. We even held talks with the Qatari officials on how we can help the release of the non-military or the civilian prisoners. I raised the issue with Mr. Ismail Haniyeh. He said, we have no motivation, no reason to keep those non-military prisoners. So as soon as there is this ceasefire, we are going to identify them, to somehow separate the military from the non-military and release them.
It's not necessary for a ceasefire to release civilians. A few have already been released under current conditions. Why not urge Hamas to release the remainder?
Do you think it's logical? They're mass killing people, killing large number of people, and at the same time you expect them to release these people, giving them a free hand in killing them, and at the same time tying your own hands. This is not logical. And he said the leader of the Hamas group said that we are not even given time to identify between these people, to see whether they are military or non-military. Why are you actually supporting the continuation of war with this question? Why not try for ceasefire?
When you say it's not logical to give them up until Hamas gets the ceasefire that they say they want, aren't you then acknowledging they are not prisoners, they are hostages? They're being held for a purpose.
They are prisoners. And when the time comes for the release of the military prisoners, then they should not forget that there are 6,000 Palestinian prisoners who are held captive by the Israelis. But now, the important thing is that they are ready to release those that are not military. The Red Cross, International Red Cross, or the UN can come up with a mechanism so that the release will be secured.
Two things to ask about, and I will let you go, Foreign Minister. And thank you, by the way, for your time. I am aware, of course, that Iran does not recognize the state of Israel's right to exist. However, there are now millions of Israelis who were born on that land, in that place, and live as civilians, attempt to live peaceful lives, and in many cases were supportive of the Palestinians who live near them until they were killed by Hamas. Do not those people, as individuals, have a basic right to safety and security that was violated on October 7th?
We have to get to the root causes of the matter. You have to pay attention to the international laws. If a person comes in and occupies a piece of land, then that land is going to remain occupied, and the passage of time does not make it disappear. Suppose that some people come and occupy parts of New York. How is the United States going to respond? Are they going to recognize the occupation and let them live in peace?
Most of the world has recognized the state of Israel.
Those territories do not belong to most of the world. They belong to the original Palestinians, including the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. We have put forth an excellent proposal, initiative, a totally democratic way. And that has also been registered and recognized by the United Nations as well. Our proposal is actually holding a referendum, and all the original Palestinians can participate in it, the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians. So they will decide their own fate, the self-determination, based on which results their future will be decided. Why don't they allow the people of Palestine to decide about their future according to the resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly? That is the logic behind our not recognizing Israel. It has to do with the international rules and regulations. And of course, let's not forget that in the last years, the Israelis have done things and they have trampled upon the most basic rights of the Palestinians.
As you know, Foreign Minister, prior to the October 7th attack, the United States, Iran, and others agreed upon the release of U.S. citizens from Iranian prisons. And Iran was to receive access to approximately $6 billion in funds from oil sales. Since October 7th, has that process continued to move forward? And has Iran received access to any of that money?
For months, we were involved in serious discussions for the return of all the parties to their commitments and obligations under JCPOA, the nuclear deal. For quite some time, there has been this plan, this initiative, which has been put on the table by the King of Oman. The exchange of prisoners was a portion of that initiative that I told you about by the King of Oman. That initiative is still on the table. We still do welcome the return of all parties to JCPOA.
Has Iran received the $6 billion or any portion of it?
That is our own money.
But have you received it?
It has been deposited in the banking account that is ours.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Foreign Minister, thank you very much.